It is Sunday, September 7th, and it's getting pretty late with Jake Landau. We're back on the Sunday beat again, which is nice. I do enjoy our Sunday podcast schedule, and we've got a great guest for you today. He is a political commentator from British Columbia and the host of This is Vancouver on Czech News, CHEK, an independent television station in British Columbia, which is entering its fifth season as a weekly talk show. His name is Amir, and it's a pleasure to have him on the program. Mo, thank you for joining.
Jake, the honor is mine. Thanks for having me on, man. I'm a big fan.
No, thank you. I mean, like, I for one, I love, I said independent television, and what it means in general in Canada is not owned by, like, Rogers or Bell or Chorus or such. And, like, I love independent television in general, just because the programming you get is interesting, and I especially love that you have, like, a weekly talk show program in Canada, because we have so few of that. We don't have normal talk shows, and we also don't really have that kind of Daily Show, Rick Mercer-esque, like, satirical talk show either.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. And one thing I'll say about Czech News or Czech Media is that we're also employee owned. So we're the first television station in North America that is wholly employee owned.
Oh, so
you
you're a
talk
co-op.
about exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's I'm not actually part of the co-op. I work as a subcontractor, which is why you'll see me on some other outlets as well. But Czech itself is a co-op, and so I'm really proud to be a part of the Czech media family.
That is really cool. We do like our socialist media in this podcast.
I don't know if that's how they're branding or advertising themselves as, but sure, you can say that.
Socialism needs all the wins it can get.
Yeah. The other thing, to your larger point of, we're not, outside of news hours, we're not really producing a lot of local TV anymore. And Czech very proudly produces a lot of local shows. Again, Czech only broadcasts in BC, but in terms of local shows that are about BC with BC personalities, Czech is the only one kind of doing that. So it's a really great fit. So you talk about, you're happy to see it. I'm happy to be a part of it. So it's really cool what we're doing, and I'm just enjoying my time there.
No,
while it lasts.
And it must be nice in general to have like an actual like paying independent media that like with stable career positions for journalists.
Yeah, absolutely. And we might be talking about this, but I don't know how I fall into that quote unquote journalist label. It's one that I've kind of shied away from just because my career trajectory was kind of happenstance. It kind of just happened.
Right.
I stumbled into media.
Much the same on my part as well. Like,
yeah. So like I interview people like you do, and I'm a political commentator. Obviously, I do journalism in the sense that I, off the record or sort of off mic, things that are not on the show, I talk to a lot of people in politics and outside of politics as well. So I guess that's journalism, but I don't know. Like it's a weird label, right?
It's funny.
And I think even right now, people are trying to define it.
It's like it's like political commentary. I find falls very well comfortably within the opinion category. So I guess it's always just the question: is opinion journalism? And I mean, as someone who does both interviews but also written opinion work, I do consider it journalistic work, just because one, I do want to hold myself to the standard of a journalist in publishing things based on facts and evidence.
Sure. Yeah,
it's like,
yeah, absolutely.
But I get like where people are concerned about bias, but also I've kind of grown skeptical of a lot of journalists who claim to act without bias. I think I trust the ones who are a lot more plain about just what they think and feel, because then I can actually contextualize what they're saying compared to reality.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I prefer I don't really fall into that unbiased camp either. In terms of journalism should be completely objective. Like we all have our own biases, implicit or explicit.
Right, because like correct me if I'm wrong, but most journalists, like I don't know all of them, but like a lot of journalists do tend to like still vote in elections if I'm wrong.
I would presume so, right?
Right.
I've never done a survey
So,
myself, but I would presume that they do.
which would mean that
Uh,
they're not without bias. They're just not saying their bias. Like that's always been my thing. It's
exactly.
like, do I come from a background of, I guess now, ex-liberal federally? Yeah, but I've always been transparent with that, and I told people exactly who I was, what I worked on, and then people could just say, okay, here, they can contextualize what I say from that. They could say, here's what his motives might be. Like,
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
But also,
One thing
I
I'll
get
say,
people
one,
who keep their distance too. That's a fair thing. And I'm, of course,
yeah.
maintaining some distance now myself.
And I think you can kind of draw the distinction between, reporters and editorialists or
Oh,
opinionists.
yeah.
Obviously, reporters, you have to be a little more, you do have to present
Yeah.
quite objective. And I think you're able to do that
But that
in
would
a
be the
rubric that
thing.
makes
It's like
sense.
people think that
Yeah.
journalism is just reporting, but no, there's so much more to it than that. It's like for one, long form work definitely doesn't fall into reporting, but it
Sure.
still. And I hold myself to a journalistic standard when I've done stuff like written like a 6,000 word train review. Like I guess that's travel writing, but like you got
Yeah.
yeah, it's a fun field. Like I think the most important thing is like because there also aren't that many central standards. It's mostly the standards of a specific editorial publication,
Right.
and so it's important for people to just actually look at the media they get. Like what are the editorial standards of that publication? And also
Mhm.
and also then like take it from that perspective. It's like actually think about the media you consume. For the folks at home, think about who I am. Think about who Mo is. Like, although I would actually like to ask you some questions about who you are. I think I've talked a little bit too much myself.
No, that's all right. One thing I just want to clarify, and I think it's important to establish, is that even in the realm of commentary or opinion work, editorial work, it's I don't know if I want to call it a spectrum, but there's levels to it,
Yeah.
right? There's the pure reactionary stuff, and that's like instant reaction. Maybe the person doesn't even have much of a understanding of the context of what they're reacting to, and they're
The
just doing a
story
TikTok or
breaks in the
whatever.
morning and the piece comes out in the afternoon.
Exactly. Yeah. There's some of, and I'm not even thinking of that. I'm thinking about like reaction videos online or, someone doing a Twitter thread or something where it's just purely reaction.
Right.
And then there's stuff that, you go to the next level and it's like, okay, you're actually familiarizing yourself with the context before coming up or drafting an opinion, which is probably where I fall for the most part, even though I do some primary research, sometimes going to the source and getting sometimes getting a word in from them and publishing that. And then that's the next level of like you have opinionists that their sources are almost primary and they are doing a much more reporting like opinion work where
Right,
they're
where you're
actually
in that
talking to the
weird
players
like
involved.
hybrid phase, like
Yeah.
and that's and I know I've seen like listings at news publications where the listing explicitly says being comfortable in that space between reporting and opinion, and I don't know how I feel about that because I mean I've done that to be honest, like same as you, but like I do I like making it clear in a piece, even from paragraph to paragraph, what's a fact and then what's my reaction to that fact.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because I mean, you might get a kick out of this, but in a conversation I had with JJ McCullough, who is a regular contributor to my show,
Oh,
we
that's
don't
fun.
discriminate, obviously. Yeah,
Yeah.
but we we he brought out this point and he's like, there's too many opinionists. And I go, but you and me are opinionists. And he goes, yeah, there's too many of
Yeah.
us. And I agree because it's easy, right? Like I think I would love to have way more reporters. And often the answer to that is like people will respond, go, well, why don't you do reporting, Mo? And it's like, well, because I just stumbled into this. I'm not
Right.
I don't have any formal education in journalism or beat reporting or anything like that. So but we do have too many opinionists because anyone with an opinion can quote
And to
unquote be
be
an
fair, it's not
opinionist.
that a lot of those opinionists can't do it. I mean, like, both you and I do have a capacity to do, like, primary source collection. Like,
Yes, and we do in our interviews, right?
right.
Certainly.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like I would say that both of our work, like your work on This Is Van Color and my work on this podcast, I feel much more comfortable calling this journalistic work just because, like, I find like interviewing like a very like honorable, like time tested profession. Like, people have been
Sure.
doing this like since before the radio, really. Like, you get what I mean. Like,
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
no, but I do also like I also get the other side of things. I get where you do want to hold a distinction between things. And I also get what JJ means, even though I normally don't agree with him on much. But the main problem is like, one, people like reading opinion, of course, like because it's like
Yeah.
emotionally engaging. But two, it's just opinion is a lot cheaper to make than reporting. But the thing is, you need reporting for good opinion because that's where I get
Exactly.
everything. It's like you and I both. It's like you'll find citations all throughout our pieces, and it's like where do people think we get it from? Reporters. Like, I can't do my job without reporters giving me facts.
No, that's exactly right. And we do even on This Is Van Color, we do citations in terms of we have headlines that accompany any television commentary that I do. When it comes to my written work that I've done for the TIE, obviously you can hyperlink now, which is amazing. Um,
Well, that's
yeah,
half
it's
of why I read
my
my
biggest.
news like online versus in a newspaper, because in a
Yes,
newspaper you don't see what they linked to, but I know like
exactly.
all of us are linking to things in the draft we submit to our editors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say that what was I gonna say? It was something
Mm.
about opinion work. Opinion work. Oh man, I've lost my train of thought. I'm
Uh,
sorry.
no
Can
worries.
you tell I've been off for the summer? I've
Yeah.
been off this whole summer. I start recording this week, and so this is good. This is a nice little warm. Oh,
Thankfully, I am. Thankfully, I'm too poor to take a summer break.
what I was gonna say is my biggest pet peeve from reply guys online, and you get shitty replies all the time, but like when someone in the YouTube comments or on Twitter is like, they're looking at one of my commentaries and they're like, this is so biased, like this is not objective at all, and it's like, duh, like this is what this is. And like, did you think this was the news? Like, did
No,
you think I was
well,
a news anchor? Like, what are you
I
talking
get the
about?
same thing. It's I'm biased. I'm an opinion writer. I am literally paid to tell people my biases. Like,
Yeah,
and explain why
exactly.
they should be biased the same way I am.
And
It's
that's the
persuasive
distinction.
writing.
That's the distinction that I try to explain to a lot of people. It's like, listen, I'm ideological, I have my beliefs, but I'm not partisan. So you'll
Yeah.
see me, hit at, the centrist or quote unquote centrist or quote unquote center left parties, whatever, when I don't think that they're making sense or that I disagree with. So I have and I don't think, like anyone, I don't think I neatly fit into, an ideological label, but I think that's a good thing. And people know where I stand on a lot of issues, but they know that I don't particularly carry water for any one party. I slam all of them, and especially if they're in power, right? Like,
Right.
I think they're more likely to get, and so that's when you get, if I do a thing about Pierre or the BC Conservatives, whoever, people are like, oh, you never attack the NDP or the federal Liberals, and it's like, I do that all the
I
time.
when I wrote my piece about leaving the Liberal Party of Canada, I made it clear it wasn't because I was worried about it affecting my writing, because I just linked about 7 different pieces where like
Yeah.
I call not just Carney or Trudeau, but like specific cabinet ministers. Like, I swear at them or I call them pond scum. Like, it's like I wasn't being inhibited in any way, but if
Yeah,
anything, I was just reconciling the fact that I didn't like a lot of these people.
sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, like you're a young guy, but like I feel like a lot of people, and maybe you were involved in 2015. I was involved
2016.
just as
I was just
2016.
too late to actually get the win, but I got in
Yeah. No, I mean,
2016.
Trudeau mania for a lot of us, Trudeau mania part two, I should say, was like, we were so hopeful for all these things that we were going to get in a new Canada. And, the disillusionment, we all almost hear it always exclusively from the right, but like from people who were quote unquote progressive, there was a lot of fallout and disillusionment with the Liberal
Well,
Party.
because like
And
I'm a socialist, and Trudeau campaigned to the left of Mulcair.
yes.
Like it's like
Yeah,
it
Mulcair made a choice.
yeah,
Mulcair made a choice to go
yeah,
center.
it felt like what would be like a new realignment in the political spectrum, that the
Yeah.
NDP had abandoned its traditional role and its voter base. And to be fair, they do seem to have lost a lot of it for good, unfortunately, federally. Like, unless
Yeah.
someone can turn things around. But it seems to that, like, the liberals fumbled things, and it seems the benefit of like workers' vote has gone to the conservatives, if anything. Which, I mean, I don't trust the conservatives to do anything pro labor, but I can understand it in
Oh,
a lot of
yeah.
ridings.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things where you have a lot of hope, and then you realize like, oh, they're still hawking for the same corporate
Yeah,
interests. And that's kind of where I'm at
oh yeah,
with
it's
a
like
lot of major parties, where you're promising citizens all these things, but at the end your top
you're
priority
like,
is
oh, they
corporate
won't
interests.
do
And
it,
yeah.
but at least they promised it. Like, and sometimes the promises are now just more important than the doing.
Which is kind of the thing that's opening up with this debate or conversation around temporary foreign workers, right? Like you had Carney come out and say, "Oh, the second biggest thing I hear from companies is we need access to foreign workers," and it's like, yeah, but who are you working for? Like,
Yeah,
I'm sure that's what you're hearing from them, but who
and,
are you working
and
for
what's funny
again?
is there's this tweet from 2014 of Justin Trudeau I pulled up a couple days
Yes,
ago,
yeah, yeah.
with like the one where he's like, "We got to get rid of the temporary foreign worker program. It's exploitative and
Yeah.
wrong." And I just quote tweeted a day or two ago, and I'm like, looking into this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's always a tweet with Prime Minister Trudeau, and yeah, I mean, he expanded that program, right? Like he just made it
Right.
even bigger than it was before. It
And
was
it
exploitative back then. It's
right.
even worse now.
And it should be an opportunity for the federal NDP, because both the liberals and the conservatives have supported and expanded the TFW program. Even now, the conservatives are like, we should get rid of it because it's bad, except for agriculture, which is the part with the worst conditions. The agriculture part is the one that made the United Nations. Yes, that United Nations
Yeah,
say that Canada has modern slavery.
yeah. No, you're absolutely right, and it's fascinating because here provincially in BC, I think Premier Eby was very smart. He's representing the BC NDP, of course. Very smart politically. He came out and said, "Yeah, the temporary foreign worker system, it's terrible. It's exploitative. We should get rid of it." And then you had the BC Conservative leader, and I want to be clear: the BC Conservatives and the federal Conservatives are not formally linked, right? Like
Right.
they're spiritually kind of in the same
It's
movement,
really
but
only the NDP that have links to provincial parties in the country.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So John Restad, the leader of the BC Conservatives, he comes out and goes, "No, we shouldn't get rid of it because agriculture and tourism really depends on temporary foreign workers."
So, Mo, have you ever seen the movie Black Dynamite?
No, what is that?
It's very funny. It's like a parody of those like 1970s black exploitation movies.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So there's this one moment where the protagonist, the titular Black Dynamite, he walks in on a meeting of the pimps, and he tells all of the pimps, "I'm gonna lay something on you cats. I am declaring war on anybody selling drugs in our community." And then one of the pimps just says to him, "But Black Dynamite, I sell drugs in the community." And he's like, "Be that as it may." It's like we're all saying, "Hey, we got to get rid of this slavery program," and then all the rich people are like, "But I own slaves."
Yeah, yeah. No, and that's why this conversation is interesting, right? And it goes to that point of a lot of these issues. When you're in opposition, it's really easy to rally against it, and then suddenly you see these parties, particularly I was going to say, with the BC NDP, which is much more centrist than certainly their federal counterpart.
Yeah,
They
most of
rally
the
against these.
Western NDP parties provincially tend to be like what the Liberals are federally.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is interesting, right? Because we get kind of branded as like left coast and all this stuff. But regardless, you as opposition, it's really easy to rally against something, and then you find you get into power, and the interests are too complicated, or you can't upset certain groups in terms of certain industries, and so those positions become quite moderated than how you spoke of them when you were in opposition, and that just seems to be the natural way of things, for better or worse.
Well, because people don't actually seem to want to get into power to change things. They want to get into power to be the one in power. And this seems to be the endless dance that the problem is not what people, your opposition politically, are doing with their power. It's just that they get to profit from being in power instead of you.
Yeah, I mean, basically, what you're saying is that they're all sociopaths, and
Not
the more I
all of
learn about
them.
politics,
Just, like a solid, like, 85%. I don't know, man. Like, I was walking around the
maybe
Liberal
I.
Party for like 7, 8 years, like my autistic ass with like sincere and core principles, like just discovering like everyone else is like, wait, you have core beliefs? You want to win power to do things? Idiot.
Well, especially for mushy centrists, right? Mushy centrists are perhaps the most power hungry, because you do have, even on the conservative wing, right? You have conservatives that are very ideological, and they subject each other to purity tests, just as you do on perhaps more progressive parties. But centrist parties, by their nature, they're just like, yeah, we're pretty flexible on what,
Yeah,
what our
like
principles
I
are.
think that the values of conservative parties are generally horrible, don't get me wrong, but at least they
Mhm.
have values and kind of test themselves on them on occasion. Like the Liberal Party in Canada, at least, like you have Carney undoing pretty much every single signature policy of the Trudeau government, and the exact
Mhm.
same ministers and MPs who voted for it the first time are all going
Yeah.
around saying, "Hey, I wonder who did that." Well,
Yeah. Yeah. We're all wondering who did this. Yeah,
we're gonna find the guy responsible for this, and like,
yeah, yeah.
it's like, listen, if I wanted a conservative government, I would have just voted for Polyev. Like, I live in a red-blue
Well,
riding. That was an
and
option
maybe,
for me. I didn't need to waste a vote like this.
but maybe this is the lane that the liberals have basically picked under Carney, where it's like, listen, we are going to be the quote unquote progressive conservatives. We're gonna, we're gonna do most of the right wing policy, but we're not going to engage in the ghoulish culture war stuff. We're not gonna,
That's just the Doug
validate
Ford
Jordan
progressive
Peterson.
conservatives. Like,
Well, Doug Ford and Mark Carney seem to be,
I know, and I hate that. It's like,
lockstep.
like when Doug Ford and Freeland, and then Doug Ford and Carney have been palling around together for so long, like that scared the shit out of me because I'm like, oh, this isn't good at all. Because it's like literally, it's like I get why the same people in the 905 in Toronto and the GTA, like who in the suburbs they'll vote for the Liberals federally, but their vote for Doug Ford provincially. It's because Doug Ford, to his credit, like I mean, aside from the sex ed thing in 2018, that quickly they backed away from. Like, they don't talk about abortion. They don't talk about
Mhm.
gay people. Like, you're not worried about your gay nephew or your trans daughter, or like you're not worried about whether or not you're going to be able to get an abortion if you have an ectopic pregnancy in Ontario. It's like
Mhm.
the biggest problem with abortion in Ontario is just that in parts of the province, you have to drive a very long way to get one because of a lack of funding, which is essentially
Right.
just
Yeah.
the tail-old problem with public health care in general in Ontario.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely
But
correct.
like, there's a
And that,
safety in that. There's a reason that like women in the 905 will feel comfortable voting for that, but not feel comfortable voting for Pierre Poilievre's like creepy weirdo incel party.
no, I mean that. Yeah. And I've obviously done commentary on how I think he's just a weird guy, and I think he's particularly lost a lot of aura since the last election. And again, this leaning into the culture war stuff, he gets into office and he's tweeting about J.K. Rowling. Like this is his problem, is that he's not seen as serious. I think there is a large swath of the country that wants, a PC, I should say progressive conservative government, and they're kind of getting that with Carney. This obviously opens up a lane on the center left,
Yeah.
where the NDP, if they can get their act together and they can get a good leader, they can speak to people who lean that way. But I do think politically it's very shrewd what the Liberal Party has done to reinvent itself, despite having, as you mentioned,
Oh yeah, like it
the
works.
same cast of characters.
Like it works. Like that's what pisses me off. Like if they did it and it didn't work, then I could just laugh at it. But when you're craving for the sake of getting power and then it works, then I'm just pissed off because I have to live in that society. Like,
that's the sad part. Going back to what we were saying earlier, about sociopaths or psychopaths, I don't know how true that is. I was kind of being funny, but I do think that for parties, their number one priority is power, right? It's not a certain policy or
it's a cult of personality,
a certain vision. Yeah. It's a cult. It is a cult. It's absolutely, the more I interact with partisans, the more I'm annoyed by them, because I just think they're in a cult.
Yeah.
I think there's some good people that are, like, oh, I disagree with the party, but they're the best fit for me. But then there's people who are just like all the signs of a cult, and there's staffers and volunteers that I feel like are actually throwing away their lives in service for some cult or some leader. And it's like, is this what you want to do?
Yeah, it's like I pretty much primarily backed away from volunteering efforts, like when I started writing in serious, like full time, which I just felt was a good line to draw anyways. But I don't want to give these people anything. It's like I'm of the general opinion that if you're going to sacrifice part of your time or your money or your well-being to service a political cause, you should believe in that political cause. It should do things that are good for society, in your opinion. Like don't waste your life for like the ideology of like centrist, like gray-colored mush, where it's like the main priority is just like grilling a burger with your family every weekend. Not that anything is wrong with the weekend barbecue with the family, but I'd like to pay for healthcare and schools and a bunch of other things that'll keep our society running. I'm just tired of the fecklessness.
Well, it's me too. We're on the same page there. And I remember during the federal election this year, I tweeted something about like, and it's a bit nihilistic or whatever, but I was like, hey guys, like, don't feel like you have to donate to any of these parties. Like, they are working for your votes, and that's it. And like, there are way better ways to spend your money.
Yeah.
Everyone knows this. We're in an affordability crisis. Save your money. And there were, it did well on like the tweet or whatever, got a lot of likes, but there were a lot of partisans on all sides that were like, this is anti-democratic, and you are telling people to stop participating in democracy. And it's like, no, I'm telling people to like learn about the issues, learn where they stand, and do all that stuff. But like, don't this team sport of bringing in normies, of like, I have to wear the liberal t-shirt, or I'm an orange NDP guy now. I just think it's so silly and stupid.
Yeah, it's like
it's frivolous in the way that sports is frivolous, where it's fun and it can be exciting. But it's like, unless you're getting your bag from it, like, dude, these people don't care about you.
It's like, I've got some old campaign t-shirts. I kind of look fondly upon them, but they're mainly just for like pajamas around the house. I would never wear one like outdoors to like the theater or something. Like I don't want to, I'm not going to wear a shirt saying liberal outdoors because I like living.
No, for sure. And listen, if you're wearing like a vintage campaign shirt, like, respect, that's pretty funny. I'm into that.
Oh yeah.
But it's like, if you're one of those people wearing a t-shirt that says like axe the tax or elbows up, and it's like specifically tied to the party, like, dude, you're a dork. Like, that is so dorky.
But Mo, what if they're not just going to axe the tax? What if they're also going to fix the budget, build the homes, and stop the crime?
You're still a dork. You're still a dork.
Damn.
Go watch sports. Sports is way more fun, and you'll make way more friends in watching sports.
Keep that note in mind, actually, Mo. You will like my guest next week. As always,
Okay, love
folks,
it.
our guest is a surprise every week. Not next week. Next week, I'll be at the Ontario Liberal AGM doing special coverage. But on the
Nice.
21st, we'll have a sports-related guest for everyone to enjoy, with
So,
the typical Jake Landau twist, as always. But
are you
before
bringing in Don Cherry to talk about temporary foreign workers?
I'm going to actually tell him that it's November and ask why he's not wearing a poppy and just hope he doesn't have a calendar on
Can't wait. Can't wait to listen.
him. But Mo, before we do go into our break, I did just, with our mutually cynical attitude on politicians, how do you actually handle interviewing them on your show? Because I do assume it's a bit of a different tack than when you're interviewing other commentators or more community-based figures.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I have, and I want to be clear, my show is a politics and culture show, and so it's very BC focused. That's really the theme. And usually when I have guests on, there's a lot of guests that, doing media is not particularly a day-to-day thing for them. So all guests except the politicians, I prep them in terms of what we're going to talk about, where I want the conversation to kind of go, in drawing their expertise or opinion or whatever it may be. Politicians is slightly different because obviously you're trying to hold them accountable, and you're particularly trying to hold them accountable if they are in government. So with politicians, I will give them a kind of an overview of the topics because I want them to know what we're going to talk about. But I don't necessarily give them I don't really tell them what I'm going to be asking specifically.
Right.
I will say that they're all treated with respect, and so you'll see politicians run the gamut from left to right, and they are all treated with respect. And I try to hold them to what I would call certain contradictions that they've made. That's where I feel like my wheelhouse is, both in my commentary and in my interview style with politicians, where I go, "Hey, you said this one day, and now you're doing this, or you're saying something else. What happened? Why did you change your mind? Have you changed your mind?"
Right.
And that's the stuff that I really like doing. But
Those natural
yeah,
points of clash that make for the things that people at home will also be questioning just as much.
totally. Yeah. And I don't, I'm not particularly antagonistic by nature. And so I think even if serious topics are covered, I think at the start and end of each interview, it is very cordial, right? It's not, I think some of the questions can be tough, but it's not hardball in terms of me trying to grill them or trying to get a gotcha or humiliate someone. It's mostly just trying to get answers.
Right.
And I'm trying to, particularly since I'm not in the press gallery, the ethos of my show is catering to a general audience. I'm trying to reach the normies, which I think we do pretty well in terms of TV ratings. And so I'm just trying to make things accessible for people who might not know anything about the subject. And I treat every guest that way, but certainly with politicians where I'm like, explain it to me like I'm five, because often they get in this they sometimes get into this habit where they're constantly speaking to the press gallery, so they're talking to people that are already well aware of the issues or the
Yeah,
context, right?
people who saw yesterday's briefing on a similar topic, so
Yes, yeah.
they don't need the recap. They don't need like last time on General Hospital.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, does that kind of explain, or does that make sense in
Yeah,
terms
and
of what I'm
and,
trying to
and
do?
that
Yeah.
that I mean, you would know my pre-show routine as well, but like that's similar to what I do for folks at home. Like before I have anyone on the show, the morning of before we record in the afternoon,
Mhm.
I send them a prep sheet. For the front half, I just give like one or two sentences on just the general themes of this episode. I would say that most of what we've talked about specifically today wasn't outlined at all.
Mhm.
And then for our back half, which we'll be getting to in a moment, for the three topics, I have the three backgrounder articles. And like, as you folks know from listening every week, I do shout out the specific article, the headline, to people who write it. So I, of course, also provide it to my guest in advance because that makes sense because you want them to have the same basic information, but I also don't share in advance what questions about that article or about the topic I may ask. Right. Especially because, Mo, as you may be aware from the David Moskrop episode, and as you will be tested on in the back half, there will be a no prize question for pointing out the obvious.
We'll see. I skimmed those articles, man. I got some takes, but we're doing for my end, you're just gonna get reactionary stuff.
Don't worry. When I say pointing out the obvious, I mean like really, really, really obvious. But don't worry, you'll probably pass. Hopefully.
Well, we'll see.
Hopefully. Folks, don't go anywhere. We'll be back after the break in a moment with our 3 headline topics of the week and our guest, Mo Amir, the host of This is Vancouver on Czech News in British Columbia. Today's episode of It's Getting Pretty Late with Jake Landau is brought to you by me. Folks, all of my work is available for free with no paywall at jakelandau.ca. But in order to keep writing and recording, I need money, because money is what makes this show go round. So, if you enjoy my content or find it informative, please consider a paid subscription at jakelandau.ca/subscribe. And please leave a 5-star rating on the show in your favorite podcast app, be it Apple, Spotify, or a secret third thing. Thank you, and enjoy the show. And we are back with our guest, Mo Amir, and our 3 headline topics of the week. And our first headline topic comes from CBC News in Saskatchewan, from 2 journalists at CBC News, Alexander Kwan and Jeffrey Tram. Saskatchewan RCMP officers raid the Queen of Canada's cult compound and arrest 16 adults. For those at home, Romana Didulo is not actually the Queen of Canada. For one, the Queen, I believe, died a couple years back, but also I didn't recognize that Queen either because I'm an ardent Republican. But that point aside,
just like JJ McCullough, like JJ McCullough,
just like JJ, not quite like JJ McCullough. Yeah. But no, it's like I fucking hate American Republicans. Just to go on a quick side tangent for ruining the word Republican. Like I'm a Republican, like the Irish are Republicans, like
sure.
Or the French. Fuck monarchy, man. So it's like, so this is my point. It's like this lady who is associated with like the QAnon and COVID-19. Like anti-vax cult bullshit. She declared herself the Queen of the Kingdom of Canada, which funnily enough, that's not the name of Canada. We're not the Kingdom of Canada. We're just Canada. We're very humble in the naming. But she declared herself queen, which I find, frankly, just as audacious as, you know, our normal monarch, Chuck the Fuck, declaring himself king. But anyways, she's had a cult compound for the last few years, been threatening, you know, casual acts of violence against public health officials for doing things like vaccinating children against deadly diseases. So after several years, Saskatchewan, to the joy of the people of the town of Richmond, Saskatchewan, not Richmond, BC, finally, a bunch of police vehicles from multiple jurisdictions, including 2 tactical vehicles, came on September 3rd, to arrest Didulo and the members of her cult, at which point they found weapons had been stockpiled. One interesting thing, Mo, here that I always find funny, well, not always find funny, I just found funny here. They said the officers seized replica firearms, but apparently they had ammunition, and people were like concerned about them like shooting people. So it's like what is a replica firearm? Is that just a firearm that's been cloned or made at home, I'm assuming? Like,
yeah, I thought that meant because they're not saying toy firearm.
Yeah, no, like these are clear like illegal things to own. What?
Yeah, I assumed it meant like a counterfeit, like a Timu.
Because it's like I mean I'm familiar with like ghost guns. I'm familiar with like the guns that Okay, so according to the RCMP, though, according to their website, a replica firearm is a device that is not a real firearm, but one that
Oh,
was
okay.
designed to look exactly or almost exactly like a real firearm.
Oh, so it
So,
is a toy.
yeah,
Okay,
well, I
interesting.
don't know if it's necessarily a toy, but I think that
It's not a
one,
firearm.
yeah, I mean, there was a firearms investigation for good reason, just because,
Sure.
it's made to look exactly like a real firearm. Uh,
That's so weird.
yeah, but
But they had real ammunition. They had
yeah,
real
well, that's why
ammunition.
like I can't blame the RCMP for doing it, and also there are legal issues with replica firearms as well.
Right.
Like I know there are like things about having an orange tip on like toy guns or whatever. Whenever there's like
Mm,
Fan Expo in Toronto, I know all the people in costumes, if they're dressed up as like the Stargate SG-1 people or anything, like they'll have the orange tips. Uh,
right.
but like, I mean, I get why, because in like November 2021, during the pandemic, she was detained by the RCMP and subject to a psychiatric evaluation after she told her followers to shoot to kill, that's a quote, any healthcare providers who vaccinated minors
Wow.
against COVID-19. So, and it's like also in like Peterborough in 2022, she tried to lead people in like a citizen's arrest of police officers. Like,
What?
so it like there, I get why they did this arrest. Now all of these people were actually released after they on September 4th earlier this week, just a day after,
Yeah, there's no charges,
on
right?
their own recognizance.
Okay.
But Didulo and another follower of hers were detained again after communicating with each other, violating their release conditions. I don't know.
Right.
The Saskatchewan Health Authority has declared the school buildings unfit for human habitation, so they won't be able to get back in there. But I guess we can't say this tale is completely done. But don't you like these random freemen on the land, like bootstrap, like 20 or 30 people, like seditionist movements? That are just like, yeah, we're gonna take some land, maybe shoot some people. We just want a couple square kilometers. Like, it would amuse me if they weren't threatening to kill people.
I think, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's where it gets obviously serious because I think that we have to realize that there is a percentage of the population, we can estimate what that is simply ungovernable. Like they
Yeah,
don't care about what's happening. They're just going to do their own thing. And that's kind of always existed. But I think, especially um, since the pandemic, like there are people that we will not get back. And when I say that, it's not that they died. I mean that there are people that they're so brain rot at this point, and COVID sparked something in them where I just don't see how they can function in normal society without a lot of therapy and actually wanting to kind of reintegrate um, back into society. And I think you see that on levels, right? This is
yeah.
a very extreme level, and then there are people who are just they've kind of fallen down the conspiracy rabbit hole, or they've become very extreme in some of their political leanings.
And there's
And so
also
it's
just the
it's
rampant
yeah.
individualists, like the people who are like citizenship is solely rights but not responsibilities. I should be able to do whatever I want, and the government shouldn't be allowed to tell me no. Like it just that idea of that you exist completely freely in society without any
Mhm.
consideration for the people around you.
Yeah, and so this might come to a surprise to you, but I used to be in a past life a very ardent yogi. I would do yoga. I would go to class in the morning and then I'd go in the evening after work. And I found with COVID, as you are probably aware, like there were a lot of those kind of like hippie-ish people, very spiritual, that side started coming out in terms of it was a very individualistic approach, and the way that they were framing these issues was all about themselves. As much as they presented as spiritual and all that
I
stuff, it was
remember
never
that
about
like the
community.
anti-vaxxer movement in like the 2000s and early 20, like it was like a
Yeah.
lefty thing. It was like these crunchy hippie, like it was the thing that Jim Carrey's ex-wife, what's her name?
Yeah, Jenny McCarthy.
Jenny McCarthy. It's like it was that kind of thing. It was like the people who were on the left side of the spectrum but were a bit kooky. Like the right-wing uptake of anti-vaxxer policy in during the pandemic, but also like in a couple of years earlier as well. That was a unique thing by itself, and I mean that's also partially you can see it in like RFK Jr. In the United States. I mean he's a Republican now, obviously, but there was a fair while where he was in that like independent space where like a lot of those left-wing types would like approach him. A similar thing with like Marianne Williamson. Like they're the Green Party types is a good way to put it.
Naomi Wolf, another great example of that, and obviously that's covered in Naomi Klein's book Doppelganger in terms of her kind of the way she went with COVID. And I mean I think we just have to realize there a lot of hippies are super selfish. Like a lot of people like we think about hippies as like communal whatever, and it's like no, man, some of these hippies are like the worst people.
No, a lot of these people get kicked off the fucking commune after a week.
Yeah.
Because they're like, everyone's like, bro, we're socialists. You got to do some of the chores. Like, they're like, bro, you won't even take out the trash. Like,
it's still to each according to their ability. Like,
like you gotta do so. Like you like make dinner once a week. Like you gotta like. I have obviously this is a bit more extreme though. It spirals out of that into this sort of we need to seize land and recreate society. But what really kind of cheeses me here is how fucking long it took for the RCMP to really do anything of like seriousness in Saskatchewan here. Like they kind of had their run of the town for 2 years. Like people there were terrified. Like these violent people stockpiling ammunition, like are threatening to shoot people. Like that, they were under occupation in a sense. Like they may be moving on from that town, but somewhere else is going to have to deal with this soon enough. I'm going to be talking about this on another week with another guest.
Well, this is, I mean, and this runs parallel to the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa, right? Where it's like
they're still fucking there.
Yeah. But certainly at its peak, it was super. Like I have friends in Ottawa, and they were just saying it was awful. It was just awful the way they took over.
I had a friend who runs a soup kitchen, who was, well, at least at the time, she was running a soup kitchen at a church, and like her volunteers, like they would get groped by men, like while they were trying to get there to help, and the police wouldn't help. The police then took photos with the same guys who did it, like selfies. Like I hate it. Like, and you've still got like a couple of those like convoy schmucks like on the hill in Ottawa. Like they're there every single fucking day. Like they moved.
What do they want now?
I don't know.
What are their
It's
demands
funny.
at
Like
this
they
point?
moved the Terry Fox statue off Wellington onto Sparks Street, so they've literally outlasted Terry Fox.
Wow.
We're in hell, man.
I just don't know what they want. I mean, we still
they want attention. They want something to do. They like the community of having their cult. Like this is the problem. It's like no one wants to leave their cult because all their friends are in the cult. That's part of that's half of why I didn't leave the Liberal Party of Canada until recently.
But a lot of them moved on, right? So they moved on to anti-trans movements or whatever.
That's true, but that means the ones who are left are like the really dedicated ones.
Yeah, well, they're not satisfied yet. They're not. I don't know what they particularly want.
They will go like the Energizer Bunny until they're dead. Like they'll just keep going and going and going and going. It's like this is just going to be the purpose for the rest of their life. Like, good luck to them. Hopefully none of us get hurt while they figure out how to find meaning in their lives.
Totally. Yeah.
Moving on to our second topic of the day, folks. And this one is a national story from CBC News again, from Catherine Tunney and Michael Woods. Canada is delaying plan to force automakers to hit EV sales targets. The move comes as the industry has struggled under U.S. tariffs. Now, I've actually written about this recently on my own Substack for my column, just about how I think this is incredibly stupid to get rid of the mandate. But what's really pissing me off here is the automakers and their lobbyists who I've seen on programs like Power and Politics, who have said that this is actually going to help them make the EV transition faster. So,
Yeah.
Mo, for our no prize question of the week for pointing out the obvious, does it make the transition faster to remove the mandate to do the transition?
Well, you see, we have to profit from the catastrophic climate change in order to address the catastrophic climate change.
That is unfortunately the incorrect answer.
Oh, that's what the government's been telling me for years, that we need to expand fossil fuel infrastructure, and only then we can finally address the issues of climate change. I know what you're saying. This is it's complicated based on the interests involved. Maybe this is my progressive conservative leanings now, but I understand why they're doing it. I think that they're because our industry is so interlinked with American automotive manufacturing. I do think that there probably is somewhat of a pressure to be somewhat on the same page in
But
terms of
Mo,
what's being
what
produced.
if I, as a resident of Ontario with family in
Yeah.
southwestern Ontario who work in the automotive industry,
Mhm.
what if I said I just think the North American companies make shitty, expensive products and nobody wants to buy, and they're just afraid of fair competition from China?
I mean, you're probably correct, because that's the reality, is that the automotive industry around the world, not just in Canada and the US, but is one of the most protected industries in the world, and it's one of the most subsidized industries. When things happen, the government will always try to step in to keep that industry profitable and going. Actually, fun fact: I did my don't quiz me on it, but I did my master's thesis on this very industry, and at the time the thesis was about what Canada can do to what kind of industrial policy can be implemented to encourage the development of alternative fuel vehicles, primarily electric vehicles. And at the time, the broad-based
Well, we
conclusion
seem to
was,
have just canceled that industrial policy.
well, we have, yeah. The conclusion was that you take all the money that you're spending subsidizing the internal combustion vehicles, and you gradually start shifting that over to subsidies for alternative fuel vehicles. But again, I think the issue with that, as I just said, is because our manufacturing is so coordinated with the United States, it has to kind of fall. It has to be consistent with what those companies are doing over
But
there.
then
with their
why should
mandate
we
over
be
there.
protecting an industry that largely benefits the United States, and where it's clear that even if we do everything they ask, they're probably going to move the jobs to the US or Mexico anyways?
Well, so that's the thing. The promise here is that we're keeping these high-paying jobs within Canada. Now, how true that is obviously can be debated, but this
Probably not
idea
true.
of and this idea that, like, we just let the industry fail. I mean, we've already hollowed out a lot of our manufacturing. So if you want to compete with um, China or other countries on high value goods, you do have to engage in some form of protectionism, which means keeping cheap imports out, and probably means subsidizing that industry. I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying what they should do. I'm just saying,
Right.
like, this is the thinking.
It's just funny for
Um,
me because I mean, like, I'm a socialist, obviously, but this is
sure.
the thing where I start to like agree with like neoliberal free marketeers and like the Milton Friedmans, where I'm like, I hate protectionism, and I think
Mhm.
like people should be able to pick the product that is better or cheaper. That like, and this is the thing. I think people are just mad that China is making better cars that cost less money. And like, it's not like they're making these cars at BYD with slave labor. These are highly automated factories. Like, the engineering jobs that go into them are just as in demand, middle class, well paying jobs as the ones we want to protect here. But it's also like the cars they build. It's like they build smaller cars that aren't these like bloated monstrosities. I know I wrote a column a few months back about how we should ban the F 150 and replace it with those like Suzuki Carries and Subaru Sambars from like Japan, which can carry the exact same amount because they have like the same
Right.
bed size and they have more hard points. So they're actually more useful for workers actually using a
Right.
truck for work. But the part that isn't the bed is just smaller and it's lower to the ground. So like it's actually useful for work. For people who need a truck, it makes sense. And if you don't need a truck, then just get an SUV.
Yeah, I think to the larger point, I mean, speaking to your perhaps socialist tendencies, is the realization that there's no such thing as the free market. This is purely a thing that's being made up. It's a fantasy. Every business, to some degree, I'm not saying that every business is subsidized, but every business is reliant on the economic conditions and environment in which it operates on. Some draw more from public resources in terms of actual direct subsidies, but every business is going to draw from the infrastructure that's being invested into that country or that region. Every business is going to draw on the taxation system that is there, the safety. If you think about retail businesses, the safety and cleanliness of certain areas that is paid for by taxpayers. So on some level, like there's no such thing as this idea of like you purely operate in some vacuum
No,
free from the
there's no
government.
like mathematically 100% free market, but there are certainly markets with higher competition than others, and we do see the economic It's like I'm a socialist, but to clarify, I'm a market socialist. I like things like co-ops, like
Mhm.
Czech. Like I like crown corporations. I even like what Aaron O'Toole proposed in the 2021 cycle, where a union would have voting seats on the board of directors at the company where they're unionized. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know that he would ever call that socialist, but it objectively is.
On a side note, I've said this on record, so it's no, I'm sticking to it. Aaron O'Toole was a missed opportunity. I think he would have been a great prime minister. Again,
Yeah.
PC, red Tory, that kind of thing. But I think he would have been, I think he would have been better than Trudeau in that sense. And he would have, if he was prime minister, we would have avoided this issue with culture warrior Pierre Poilievre, which I think has been bad for the
Uh,
country
I'm
overall.
never I'm
Uh,
never much a one to go for least worst options. I just like I would like to just
there
vote for someone good.
Well, you're young and you still, you're an idealist and I'm looking at
Do I
options and
sound like
going,
much of an idealist to you? I said that 85% of politicians are sociopaths without empathy. Like
but
that's
the
ideal.
least the
It's
least
like at
worst
least
option is all we have, Jake. That's what
it's
I'm
like,
talking
oh, at
about.
least he thinks 15 of the percent aren't. Like that's pretty good.
That's who you want to promote into
Uh,
cabinet,
but
okay?
it's like
I
what's
get
yeah.
it.
Well, I would say though, as a market socialist, is that the irony is that the freest markets tend to be ones with socialist participation. Look at telecommunications in Saskatchewan, where it's not just Rogers and the like. You have SaskTel, a crown corporation that provides cellular and home internet services and television, and people in Saskatchewan regularly year after year have lower prices for phone data and everything than people in the rest of the country. And it's because that crown corporation forces Rogers to compete and lower their profit margins and offer better deals to consumers. And now it's
Yeah.
still a free market. Like the company would not work as a crown corporation if people did not willingly pick it to have their phone or their television or their home internet. Like they have to offer competitive service themselves. That's my ideal socialism right there. It's like no one's banned from having a private company. It's just that they have to compete on fair terms. And ideally, crown corporations are a great idea for that, where if there isn't real competition in a market, you can create a crown corporation to stoke that competition.
Mhm.
I think that's why
No, I
banks
mean,
are so afraid of the idea of postal banking.
well, no, I think you're absolutely correct in that regard. And I would go one step further and just say, any developed economy has had intense government intervention to develop and to cultivate certain industries. And you
Right.
can look, that's across the Western world and across the Eastern world in terms of developed economies. That's just how they've all kind of grown
Free
and
markets
continue
don't
to be
exist by
maintained.
accident, and they've never existed without
No,
government policy. Because the thing that
exactly.
capitalists always forget to admit is that capitalism did not invent markets. There was markets under feudalism, there was markets under the economic systems that predated feudal organization,
Sure.
but who could participate in the market, how market participation worked, that is what changes between economic modes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, a bit off topic from the EV mandate thing, but I know
Sure.
one more thing I wanted to mention on this, Mo, that really does bug
Yeah.
me, and why I like the mandate and think it's still good policy. It's branded horribly. It's not a fully electric vehicle mandate.
Hmm.
It's a hybrid mandate. No one's saying you can't sell a car with a gas engine anymore. They're saying that 20% of them in 2026 and then 100 by 2035 will have to at least be a hybrid car. And the thing
Hmm.
about hybrids is that, yes, there are some people who need more flexibility than a fully electric car can give. It may not have the range or everything, but a hybrid is always, always, always a better option than the gas powered car of the same car. Like if you have like a normal SUV and then the same model SUV but as a hybrid model, you should get the hybrid because you get better fuel efficiency, you can use your battery in the city and then save the gas for the highway where you have like it burns, you go further while per gallon or liter, like, and you can have regenerative braking, like you can sometimes have further range on a hybrid. It's also obviously a lot easier to retool a production line to make a gas powered engine to have a small electric battery included than it is to create a fully electric model from scratch. Like you can reuse the same platform for like your existing gas powered SUV.
And I understand that, and I think that you're absolutely correct in a lot of what you're saying. The issue is the problem is at this point because the proponents of the EV mandate, just like the proponents of the carbon tax, did not were not able to properly sell it to the public. It's at a point now where it's a political loser.
Yeah.
And so I think the Carney government and the liberals have kind of realized, like, listen, we don't want to go down the same route with this as we did with the carbon tax. We're just gonna kind of,
But there's
cut it at
just
the knees and
there's no route to being back on track. It's just giving up when things are getting worse than ever on the climate front.
oh yeah, I'm not.
Yeah. Uh,
I, this is not validating any sense
oh
of
no, I'm not.
integrity
I'm
or
not accusing you.
backbone.
We're having
Yeah,
a
yeah,
we're
yeah,
having a good
yeah, yeah.
conversation. We're
I'm saying what I'm saying is that like because it was so poorly sold and not explained to the public, the pressure from the Conservative Party has been so overwhelming, and there's been a lot of misinformation on this, just as there was with the carbon tax, that it's a political loser. And so I understand why they're abandoning it. I don't think it's right or like I'm not even saying whether it's right or wrong. I'm just saying like I understand the politics of why they're abandoning it. And we've just continually seen this from the Carney government of adopting effectively the conservative platform. But the core difference being they still refuse to their credit, refuse to kind of engage in the culture war stuff that Pierre is hell bent on keeping at the forefront.
yes, thankfully, in our feminist, gay accepting Canada, we will all boil to death equally in the climate wars. It's
I'm
not
picking the least
intended.
worst. I'm picking the least worst option here, Jake. All right.
Uh, yeah, if only these liberals had had someone skilled at communications who could have perhaps messaged this better for them and worked on that for them, and perhaps his
Yeah.
name could have been Schmake Schmandow. uh, and another lifetime. Uh, but moving on to our.
You're still young. You're
Yeah.
still young.
I'm 25. I'm not that young anymore for political work.
That's Oh, I wish I was. You know what's funny? I was chat. This is a completely off topic. Then we'll get to the last topic.
No
But
worries.
I was chatting with my editor. I took my crew out for dinner, and I can't even remember what it was, but I said the word I said the word cannabis. I was like, blah, 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 blah. We were talking about something. I said cannabis. And she's Gen Z, she's 22 or 23. And she snickers and she goes, cannabis? What are you, 30? And I
Yeah.
was like, God, I wish I was 30. Like, I turned 40 this year.
Well,
So
I
I wish I
remember in
was 30.
2017 when we started calling it that instead of marijuana because we realized marijuana was kind of just a racist word they made up in the early 1900s because they
Yeah.
only made it illegal to demonize Hispanic people.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
well, and there was, some pressures to undercut the hemp industry,
Yeah.
which had a lot of industrial
Damn
uses as
you,
well.
William Randolph Hearst.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
That was one of the few actual useful things I learned from the Joe Rogan experience.
yeah. And from Family Guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I give Joe Rogan credit sometimes. I don't think he's a complete asshole. I think sometimes he's just kind of stupid.
To be honest, I haven't listened to him in years, but I
Yeah.
think every male my age at some point had their
Yeah.
Joe Rogan
Well,
experience
it's like I
phase,
was a
right?
Bernie bro in like the 2010s
Yeah.
as a teenager. It's like, of course, like I would, like, it's like, Theo Vaughn, I'm not really as much into. Apparently, he's tied to David Duke, and I'm like, that's a nope from me, dog.
His chat with Gabor Mate was pretty incredible though.
Oh, yeah.
That was fascinating.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is what it is.
Folks, if you don't know who David Duke is, look up the Ku Klux Klan, a folk of generally bad dudes.
Yeah, not
Not,
a good dude.
not a
He didn't
fun
wait,
bunch.
Theo Vaughn didn't actually have David Duke on his show, did he?
Not on a show, but apparently, like they knew each other or something. Like, well, folks, feel free to fact check me on this. Feel free to give me a little fact check on that.
We're
Uh,
just gonna call Theo Vaughn a
yeah,
Nazi and not be fact
yeah,
checked by it. Wow.
yeah. Folks, if you have a complaint about something you've heard on the Jake Landau is Getting Tired podcast or whatever, it's getting pretty late with Jake Landau or any of our contact, please contact the Canadian Broadcast Standards Council at a PO box whose name I can't remember right now. Moving on to our final topic of the day, and as all of you know at home, we like to do a local story from somewhere across the country or just to give a little highlight on that. And Mo, since you are from BC, I figured you would be great to talk on this one. The pickets come down at an ICBC office in British Columbia, but the BCGEU union vows to ratchet up their strike against the government. This one is reported by Global News in BC by Simon Little and Travis Prasad. And yeah, we've got a strike by the BC General Employees Union, so pretty much who do most of the public service positions in the province. And they've been doing some strikes and pickets at some positions, although not a fully extended strike. They're saving a lot of their strength for if negotiations continue to not be fruitful, they can ratchet things up with more intensity. There hasn't been any back to work legislation because I presume the government has learned from the example of what just happened with the Air Canada flight attendants, so that would be a very stupid idea. But there has been a legal ruling by the Labor Relations Board for a common site order that bars striking workers from picketing unrelated third-party businesses. For folks outside of BC who may be unfamiliar, ICBC is a public Crown Corporation insurance company that provides car insurance, I believe, to people who live in British Columbia. And for disclosure at home, I believe they may be a member insurer of the Insurance Bureau of Canada, which I did an internship at for a year in the president's office. I don't have any current ties to them or to the insurance industry, but disclosure out of the way. But Mo, I want to ask, as someone who is in the journalistic field in British Columbia, I've talked a lot about labor policy and strikes recently and in my writing. But I want to get your perspective, just because as someone from BC, I think you probably have a closer to the ground perspective on this specific labor dispute.
Yeah. So The BCGU is a fairly large union. I believe its membership is between 30 and 40,000 people.
So like a
Um,
CUPE or an OPSU for people from central Canada for context.
yeah, it's public sector workers for the most part, but it runs the gamut, right? So you have from the BCL, so the BC Liquor Store employee, to certain wildfire firefighters,
Drive test
to
sites.
yeah. So it runs the gamut. I think, and I'm not saying this in a disrespectful way, I think in the labor negotiations that the province is looking down the barrel in terms of, we have the nurses contract is up for review, so is the teachers contract. The BCGU may be perhaps the least sympathetic, or can be framed as the least sympathetic. I think the public will very much support nurses and teachers, but on some of this other stuff, I'm not sure. I don't think that they hold necessarily the same weight. But where it becomes very important is the BCGU is kind of the first high profile negotiation. So they set the tone for how the government will then approach, their negotiations with the teachers and the nurses
Expectations for
afterward.
what kind of raises or how much, if anything, may be
For
offered.
sure.
Like,
For sure, yeah, and how these topics get framed around, how um, things like wage increases get framed around inflation and that type of thing. I think the government I think there was a misstep from Premier Eby where, he was in the news this week saying, "Oh, we gave them a great contract in 2022, so they need to meet, they need to compromise because we're in tough, dire straits financially." The
yeah,
the
it
provinces.
is no longer 2022. It has been three
Yeah.
years, and there's now, like, you now need a new contract, which should also be a good contract.
Well, and that's just it, right? And so
It's like,
I
yeah,
don't
you
think
don't get
that
like, you get
approach.
one good contract and one poverty wage contract, and we alternate every 3 years. Like, that's not how it works.
And what EB and I think the BCNDP are trying to do is they're framing it to the public as like, listen, the province's finances are not in a great place. We're looking at a budget deficit upwards of perhaps 15 billion. The actual projection is around 10 billion, but based on losing the carbon tax and a few other things, they're looking at about 15 billion. That's the highest estimates of a budget deficit. So they're pointing to that, and I think the union rightfully is like, well, that's your business.
Yeah,
Like, that's not.
it's like, oh no, after we willingly got rid of a revenue generation tool, we have a bigger deficit. It, like, you
Yeah,
you did that to yourself. That's not any of these public servants' faults. Like, especially considering
exactly.
how many of them likely take public transit to get to and from work and are on the good side of the carbon tax and are getting more. Like, I
Well, and the BCGEU is pointing to, actually, I can't remember if it's them or another union, but someone has been pointing out to the fact that part of this budget deficit includes a $4 billion contingency fund, and that's the fund that is used to ensure that services continue to get delivered. So, if we have a $4 billion contingency fund, we're probably going to eat $2 billion of that, just based on the loss of carbon tax revenue. But then you have another 2 billion to kind of play around with in these various negotiations. So again, I think that the union has a good point of just like, your finances are your own issue. That's something that you have to figure out. And I don't know if that's going to be compelling for the public, right? Because a
yeah.
lot of this does get kind of fought in terms of in terms of public opinion.
And public
And
opinion tends to be like, who do they hate, if anything? Like, if there's no one
yeah,
like they really hate, then they'll be like, oh, times are tough for all of us. I didn't get a wage, so you could not. Like, real crab in a bucket mentality that I really hate. But like, when you have an Air Canada situation where everyone fucking hates them, like, then they all love the flight attendants. But also, I think the flight attendants had an easier time just because everyone was like, wait, you're not getting paid at all?
yeah, yeah, no, and that's such a big part of it. And so when I said that part about unsympathetic, what I mean is, there are going to be big swaths of the population that go, well, I don't really care what some bureaucrat wants in terms of a raise, or I don't think the guy at the liquor store should be making $40 an hour. There are people who think that, right? And so
Yeah.
that's what I mean by perhaps in some regards the least sympathetic. I think the public is very much on side with nurses, especially lately, and certainly with teachers even. But with BCGU, because they're so big, you're going to have, some commentators being
You
like,
lose the
"Do you
ability
really?"
to say like we're the carpenters union. We build chairs, or it's like we're the
Yeah, and
plumbers union. We keep your toilet run. It's like it's the ability to market yourself based on what you do for people in their daily lives. And that's harder
exactly.
when you're part of one of these big conglomerate unions. Now, to be fair, I'm in the Canadian Freelancer Union as part of Unifor, so I get the feeling of being in a very big conglomerate union. And I wouldn't say that opinion columnists is what people associate with Unifor first and foremost.
Well, and you know what I mean, right? So if someone frames it as like, this editorialist wants a raise, people are going to be like, no, we we don't want to give them a raise. You know what I mean? So it's easy to pick at. You'll get these talking heads that will pick at certain things. But again, I think it's a very impactful negotiation, because it does set the tone for many other unions that are also. I believe in total it's shy of 500,000, but it's something around like 400,000. Please fact check me on this. Public sector workers that are up for negotiation with the government of BC this year, or like in the next 12 months. So it's a very impactful negotiation, and where it lands, I think, will, determine what nurses get and what teachers get. And I think the government, the province, is very wary of this, but at the same time, I think that their approach of, oh, we have no money, is not going to work with the public. The public is waning on a lot of. I think their patience is running very thin on a lot of issues. Where it's running thin on using Trump as a scapegoat. It's running thin on, squeezing workers, uh, but not, but services still deteriorating. Um, and so I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't see it
like people just want the
out from this.
SkyTrain to
Yeah,
run on time.
yeah. That's it. And you hear about, like let's talk about nurses for a second. You hear about the conditions that nurses are in, and just the burnout that they face. And there's safety issues with things like burnout. There's safety issues with things like high ratios of, I guess, would it be low ratios or high ratios, where there's too many patients per nurse, right?
Yeah,
Ratios that are not optimal for work. Um,
when
you know,
someone
I
has to think hard for their job and that job takes human life in the balance, you don't want
yeah,
them distracted. You don't want them
yeah.
overburdened. You want them calm and relaxed and in the zone.
Yeah, and so I think there's a lot of public sentiment in BC that's shifting towards this idea of like, okay, it's like we're running these big deficits, but where's all the money going? Because this it doesn't seem to be going into services. You look at schools, and this week I'll be doing a monologue on this actually. The BC government cut this student family affordability fund, which was for the most vulnerable students, in order to pay for things like school supplies and class trips. And the fund was only about $20 million. The government itself last year was talking about how transformative it is for, putting kids all on an even playing field. And now they're, I get that
Kids
they have
can't
to make
afford to be on
austerity,
an even playing field this year.
but
So we
but
got
no, but it's this idea of like, okay, I get that we have to make budget cuts, but like, really, we're gonna cut from the vulnerable students first? Like, that's what we're gonna do? Like, that makes no sense.
and it's
And
also
so,
just that they're always unwilling to like raise any tax ever. And I'm sorry, but if you're the NDP and you can't raise any taxes, then we're doomed.
yeah, and again,
Like if not
it's
them, then who?
yeah. No, you're completely right. And again, we have to, like, here we are bashing the BCNDP, but like, they ran an election last year in October around this idea of, we're going to give you, $1,000 rebate to help you with affordability through the year. So basically, not even a tax cut, but like a direct check to households. And that never came to fruition. And the excuse they used was, oh, our finances, our budget deficit is too big. And it's like, well, you're in government. That again, that's your problem. Why
Yeah.
did you promise it to us?
It's like at least when Doug Ford promised his bribe checks before the election, I received mine.
Well,
It's
and that's the
like
thing. I wasn't particularly fond of this rebate, but if that's the central thing of your campaign, and then you get into power and you stay in power and then you don't deliver on it, it's like, well,
that.
like
Yeah, that just reminds
what do
me
we
though
do?
of like remember that Futurama episode like in the first run from I think from like season 3 or 4 where President Nixon's head. He gives everyone a rebate of $300, and they're all trying to figure out what to spend it on. And Fried Bot uses it for 100 cups of $3 coffee. And after the 100th cup, he ascends time and becomes this golden glowing being that can move at the speed of light. And he just saves everyone from a burning fire.
Are we sure it was coffee? It sounds like another substance, but I'm not sure.
I think it was a parody too of like a rebate thing that I think George W. Bush did in the early 2000s because
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
Futurama was always timely on political satire, even if as the 6-year-old watching it way too young, I didn't know what it was satirizing.
And to be clear, I'm not against rebates. Like certainly means tested for most households. Like I think they should get a tax rebate.
I'm against.
Especially when one's
I'm against
no.
rebates. I think they should just use that to make services better. Like, if you have leftover money, just do a better job. Like,
Yeah,
it's like,
I
oh, we had $5 million we could have spent on nurses, but instead we just figured, we'd give it to people to try and find a private nurse. Like, that's my problem with rebates. It always ends
sure,
up,
sure.
it's like the whole idea of taxes is that by pooling our money together, we can come with like useful collective solutions that accomplish more than the money could split up. Like it's the
No,
economies of
no, no,
scale. Yeah. Yeah.
I completely understand that. I think what like, to be clear, I'm not asking for a rebate for myself. I make a good income. I'm not
Yeah.
living paycheck to paycheck,
You're
but I
just
think for a
asking
lot of
for it
people
for
that,
like the working class and for like
yeah,
general people. Yeah.
people who are living paycheck to paycheck, I think $1,000 goes a long way. There's,
But what if I don't
I
think
live,
these people make good choices?
I'm in no position to say that, and I would never. I think there needs to be a low barrier when it comes to stuff like that.
No, I have no enmity with Canada's ruling class. My enemy is the Canadian people.
Oh man. Well, I'm glad you said it facetiously because someone might clip that. So that's all on
You
you.
see, I'm never
Uh,
worried about running for office in the future.
well, it's funny, I going back to maybe the start of our conversation, I delved with a lot of satire and sarcasm and that kind of thing. But you have to be very careful because I'll say something on the CBC or even on Check, and I will get emails of like, I can't believe you said that. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, no, no, no. In context, like if you see the whole thing, I'm being facetious. I'm making fun of the other side of people who actually say that.
No,
Like,
yeah.
oh, well, that wasn't clear. And it's
I'm not,
again, you
and
got to meet people where they're at.
I'm not on Twitter. I'm not gonna put the /s after when I'm being sarcastic. I'm
No,
sorry.
neither am
Yeah,
I.
like I'm
No.
sorry. I am autistic. I have the facetiousness disease. If I can understand it, then nobody has any excuse. Like, like I have the
I
disability that prevents you from grasping sarcasm, and I grasp
on
the sarcasm.
on Twitter, my rule is when it comes to stuff like that, sarcasm or being satirical, my rule on Twitter is listen, if 20% of people don't get it and they think I'm being literal, fine. I'm willing to accept 20%.
But if 80%, then you're in the hole.
Then you fucked up.
Yeah,
Then like
then you're
you're not being
issuing
very
a
clear.
notes apology.
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
Then it just wasn't good satire, right? Then it was you didn't communicate effectively.
Valid.
Yeah.
Mo, this has been an absolute pleasure of a program. Thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything you would like to share with the audience before we let you go for the day?
Yeah, if you're in BC and you have cable, please tune into my show. This is Van Color, Thursdays at 9. We launch this week. It'll be very fun. No elections bogging down the season. So, I think we're going to have some great guests, and I'm very excited about that. And if you're not in BC, if you're just wherever, follow me on Twitter, I guess, at Van Color.
Awesome possum. Thank you so much, Mo. It has been, again, a pleasure to have you on the program, and hopefully we'll have you on soon.
The pleasure's all mine. Thanks, Jake.
Mo Amir, everybody. And that'll do it for this week's episode. Thanks once again to Mo Amir for joining the program. Please listen to his program every Thursday on Czech News in Vancouver at 9 p.m. Pacific Time. That is 21 Pacific Time if you're a Francophone. And next week, we will have a special episode live on the scenes of the Ontario Liberal Party annual general meeting, where they will be deciding whether or not to keep Bonnie Crombie as the leader of their party. I will be on the scene for several days. We will try to get something out for you before the final day of the convention happens, so there'll be a bit of a surprise what the end result is. But if that's not your speed and you prefer the in-house traditional studio episodes, then don't worry. On September 21st, we'll have an episode with someone in sports media. As always, identity is a secret. Don't try to guess because I will not tell you, but it's a fun one and I'm very excited. Thank you, folks. Have a good night. This is the end of the show. Bye.